Monica Lindstrom is here to explain it all to us. And what we are talking about, of course, is the James Ray case in which there were 3 deaths, 18 to 20 hospitalizations, all as a result of the sweat lodge that was created by whom? There it is, Monica. There is the sweat lodge itself. And you know what? It looks like a scout camp decided that they were going to put up a kind of makeshift hut.
If I didn't know what that was, I would never even fathom that it was some kind of sweat lodge or ceremonial thing.
Totally dark, apparently limited air coming in.
Yes.
And it was hot outside.
It was very hot outside and even hotter inside.
Okay, so then the defense may say, well, you can't bring up anything about the fact that he didn't know, or they didn't know, the builders didn't know how to put up an authentic Native American sweat lodge. And maybe somebody says, well, that can't be allowed. How do you determine what can't be allowed in a trial in which 3 people died?
I know, it seems unfair to the general public, but what happens is we have certain rules as attorneys that we have to follow. And the only evidence that's coming in is relevant evidence. And you might think, well, gosh, isn't everything relevant? These people died, just like you mentioned. But the judge has to look at, is this evidence more relevant, or is it more prejudicial? Meaning, if this is good stuff, it tells the backstory, but it really doesn't matter to this particular case, and it's just going to make the jury get mad or prejudice them against the defendant, it's not coming in. So if something happened at a sweat lodge ceremony 5 years ago that he participated in, it might not be relevant at all to these 3 deaths.
My reaction to that would have been, well, then why didn't he know better? If he had that experience 5 years ago, it would seem that anybody logically would say, particularly with the kind of background that he has in doing these kinds of things around the world, that he would say, whoops, I better not do that again.
And that's a very good argument. So the judge has to take that argument and the argument I just said and balance them and see what's going to come in and what isn't.
Do I have a future in the practice of law?
I think so.
Thank you very much, Monica. Please let me know, too, what the difference is here, now taking the other side. Yes, they signed a waiver. Well, do they really understand what all of that means? Do they understand what it's like to be inside? Runners, I have a friend who over this past weekend did a mini triathlete. You know, well, you know what? Mini or not, when I hear about thousands of meters swimming and an incredible run, a minor marathon, and then riding a bike, well, you can say, listen, there are people who have really suffered serious injuries as a result of this, and incredible, unacceptable fatigue. They're adults, and they do it.
And that's an argument that the defense is going to throw up there. Absolutely. That's one of the, I would say, the cornerstones of their case. Again, back to the free will and the thinking of these people.
And they're motivated to do it either by a coach or some inner drive that they have. What kind of position do you think the defense is in? We know these people died. We know what the conditions were like, and we know that they're grown-ups.
I think it's a very difficult case for either side because the prosecution is going to have to convince the jury that these were not free thinkers. They were under so much influence, or they were in such a weakened state that they trusted him. And then they're going to have to show that he knew there was a possibility of death and just ignored it. Just basically ignored it, didn't prepare for it, maybe didn't warn them enough. And so that's a tough battle. But if they overcome that, the defense has to try to prove, oh, these guys weren't weakened. You know, even though they didn't eat for 36 hours, we warned them ahead of time. We told them they could opt out, and they could have left at any time.
This is just supposition on your part, okay? So, Judge, pay no attention. Would you, as a judge, allow videotapes of particularly influencing speeches that James Ray may have done in the past? Not sweat lodges, but where you can see the inspirational and motivational style that he had?
Yes and no. If they were speeches from this particular seminar or retreat, I think that there's a relevance to them. If this was something from 3 years ago, I think legally it probably shouldn't come in. However, the expert that the prosecution's going to call to talk about these kind of things, he can talk about how he did view those videos, and that's information that he took inside to determine his opinion. So, yes and no. It depends on when it was done.
What are the problems he has in the court starting today?
What are the problems?
Yeah, what are the problems that James Ray has?
Well, first of all, the fact that he's even on trial for 3 deaths.
That's a problem.
Yeah, it's a big problem. So
and he's in jail.
Yes. So he's already got marks against him. And then the fact that the prosecution has a lot of these arguments, and it's going to be difficult for him to refute these arguments. But we won't hear his side of the case for, gosh, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, because the prosecution will have so many witnesses between the cops and the investigators and participants of the actual seminar.
Can he get a fair trial here? I mean, that was a major point of discussion.
It was.
Whether the trial should be held here at all.
Absolutely. And the judge actually waited on his decision until the jury was finally picked. He didn't decide to move it to Maricopa County unless there was proof that he couldn't get a fair trial. So now that the jury has been impaneled, or they'll be impaneled this morning, the judge has already determined that James Ray can get a fair trial here. Because if he wasn't, if the judge didn't think so, the judge would have probably moved it to Maricopa County and started jury selection all over again. And apparently there's a lot of people up there that didn't see the media attention that this received about 1.5 years ago.
You know who's right now really on the edge of their seats? The evangelical television ministers who are saying, well, wait a minute, if I heal that person and they fall off the stage, I'm kind of the guru guy. I didn't mean for that person to be hurt, but as we follow the trial, we will also follow what Monica Lindstrom has to say. Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you.